we're going to see real quick, because I just have to put it in the record. Current President Biden got on the wrong plane, which is easy to do when all those planes are sitting around looking at you. You just go up the wrong walkway and no one stopped him, though. That's the point. It's not that he'd go to the wrong plane all the time, but they always stop it. Sir, this is your plane. They've stopped doing that. That causes concern for like, who's steering the country right now? I know he's not anyway, but like, we're going to hear about the Obama coup. That's going to be one of the first stories. Bombshell from Cy Hirsch, brought to us by Kim Iverson. And then we're going to the Donald Trump takes questions from the NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists. That was quite a spectacle.
Hilarious.
So the first question is just classic Donald Trump. And is he the most qualified person to lead this country? Certainly not. But he is in the race, and the other people in the race that are racing against him are less qualified, I think. I don't know. I don't play politics. Politics is just other people talking about how to divvy up your freedom. That's it. All right, let's go to the first clip.
I want to make fun of Joe Biden. So we have this clip. Check this out. Life is good, isn't it? Do you guys remember the good old days when Joe Biden was the nominee and we got to make fun of him?
You mean just a couple weeks ago?
Just a couple weeks ago. Watch this video. Here you go. Here's so some context. This is the prisoner swap. They get off the plane. You had Whalen and Gershkovich, and others too, I believe.
There were others, yeah.
And so here's Joe Biden with I believe that's Kamala Harris, isn't it? And here you go. Here's what happened. There's old Joe bobbling about. What's this, Joe? Where are you going? Oh, he's walking. Where's he going? He's not walking towards any individual. He's going on the plane.
He's saying hi to the pilots.
Is that what he's doing? He's just...
I think he figures there's a plane there, and so it must be for him.
I think he wanted to show off his new legs for the cameras. I can take these steps.
Yeah. Look at me. No, it doesn't matter anymore because he's not the nominee. He's out.
Right.
I don't even think he's the president at this point.
This is actually Kamala shipping him off.
But like, they're just staring at him going into the plane. And they said that he wanted to say hi to the pilots, but you don't see him turn left there. And then he's just in the plane. And he's in the plane for a little while, and I'd
like to see him take those stairs down. Can we see? Is there a video of that?
And then he comes down the stairs.
We made it.
Okay. Whew.
So I guess
himself to Kamala.
So everyone's like, what is he doing? It's an empty plane. Why is he going inside of it? And then the narrative now they're trying to put out is, oh, he's saying hi to the pilots. He just wanted to go say howdy, Captain, and you want him to honk the horn or something.
Those are
the good old days, man.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm gonna retire.
You miss Joe.
Well, we used to make fun of him, and now it's like he's the president, but his brain don't work too good, and he's not doing anything, and Kamala Harris isn't doing anything either, and she was installed. You've got two individuals that are completely devoid individuals, and I think that's the point. Nobody cares about Kamala. Nobody wants to talk about Kamala. They're trying to see if they can get to the point in this country where they can install the political leader like China does.
And that's what they're doing.
That's right.
And that is exactly what Xi Jinping did as well.
And everyone's falling in line now. In a matter of a week? When was this decided?
Yeah, but like
everyone's falling in line already.
The Democrats are, but I wonder if the polling is real.
I don't know if the polling is real. My worry is that they're going to push this pundit-driven propaganda campaign to the point where it will seem inevitable that she wins the election, and then they can just steal it outright because everyone thinks that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And all they really need to do is get the Republican base to stay home. If the Republican base feels demoralized, then they'll just stay home and they won't vote.
I don't even know if that matters.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter, but like those are the things that they can do.
Bombshell from Seymour Hirsch comes out with this Leaving Las Vegas piece talking about Joe Biden and how the Obamas and Pelosi and Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries basically forced the old guy out, that he didn't step aside because he wanted to step aside. He stepped aside because they threatened him with invoking the 25th Amendment. Here's part of the article. He also says that Joe Biden, according to his sources, didn't even have COVID. It was a different medical emergency, and that they covered it up by calling it COVID. But he says on Monday, July 15th, Biden took off on Air Force One on a campaign trip to Nevada, a toss-up state that Biden won in 2020 by a little more than 30,000 votes. On Tuesday, he gave the keynote address to 5,000 members of the NAACP at its annual convention. The next day, the president apparently stricken while campaigning with a yet-to-be-revealed illness, broke from his schedule and made a police escort race to Air Force One after initially telling police they were heading to the nearest emergency room. So something happened with Biden that they thought they needed to go to the emergency room, and they were doing like a sprint to the ER, and then they ended up detouring and saying, no, we're going to Air Force One instead. A series of blog posts, local police reports, internet messages, and reports in the Daily Mail disclosed further details of Biden's trip to Las Vegas and his abrupt return home to Delaware. I went over these reports this week with a senior official in Washington who helped me fashion an account of the White House in complete disarray, culminating in the president's withdrawal from the race. It's a story not unlike 7 Days in May, the Cold War thriller in which the colonel, played by Kirk Douglas, foils a coup staged by a general, played by Burt Lancaster. None of what you read below comes from an official account by the White House. So this is all stories that have been pieced together. At this point, according to Emily Gooden, a Daily Mail reporter who was in the traveling press pool, the president was deathly pale, and Air Force One flew at maximum speed to Delaware, where the president has a weekend retreat at Rehoboth Beach. The press pool was told that Biden had COVID. Nothing more was said on Air Force One. After Biden's return to Delaware, the White House told the public that Biden had contracted a COVID infection and would be in isolation. He was said to have upper respiratory symptoms, a runny nose, a cough, and was fatigued. That was the last straw for a core group of congressional leaders, government officials, and some senior Biden funders who were withholding huge amounts of committed contributions. There was pressure on donors to come across on their pending commitments. The official told me it was understood that Biden had a physical problem in Las Vegas, and the family was saying no to continued pressure from donors and senior Democrats in Congress to withdraw from the presidential campaign. Initially, the president could not be reached. By Saturday, July 20th, former President Barack Obama was deeply involved, and there was talk that he would place a call to Biden. It was not clear whether Biden had been examined or just what happened to him in Las Vegas. The big three, the official said, referring to Pelosi, Charles Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries, continued to be directly involved. On Sunday morning, the official told me with the approval of Pelosi and Schumer, Obama called Biden after breakfast and said, here's the deal. We have Kamala's approval to invoke the 25th Amendment. The amendment provides that when the president is determined by the vice president and others to be unfit to carry out the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall assume those duties. So Kamala Harris had given the green light of, okay, fine, I'll support you in invoking the 25th Amendment. So they called Biden and they threatened the old guy and they said, you have to step aside. Now, what I'm also wondering is if Kamala used that and said, and I'm going to be the nominee. If you want me to do this, I'm the nominee. And that's it. That's how this is going to be. It's the Biden-Harris administration. We at least continue the Biden-Harris administration through Kamala Harris. She gets to be president, and this whole thing. But they lie to us. They don't tell us anything. They make it all up. They have no respect for us. They have no respect for our intelligence. They don't want to tell us the truth about anything. But this story is highly believable. I'm sure, Biden was definitely not wanting to step aside. He was very much, defiant about it. He wanted to continue on. His family wanted to continue on. So this is highly, highly believable. Hey guys, this was just a clip of a longer. How are you? How are you?
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much, and, you know, and I say this, historically, black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said you can't do it with Zoom. Well, you know, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was
Mr. President,
wrong.
I would love
I think
if you
it's
can answer
a
the
very
question
nasty
on your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I have
believe that
answered
black
the
voters
question.
should trust you with another 4
I have
years.
been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct question.
Define it for me, if you
I just
would.
defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say.
Good, pull it. Okay, so a major reporter for, what was that, ABC, thinks that the word is the same as the definition. Black's Law Dictionary, no pun intended. The words have definitions, sweetie. That's how that works. Now, also, she said that Johnson and the Civil Rights Act. I almost choked on that one. I was like, what? First off, Democrats traditionally are the party of slavery. LBJ was no different. The only thing was they made the people of color think that they weren't owned, but they were owned. They still have to vote Democrat. They're owned. Steve Biko, the leader of the Black consciousness movement, famously said, the greatest weapon in the mind of the oppressed, or the greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The Democrat Party has people of color in a Stockholm syndrome where they are voting for the people who traditionally supported slavery. The Republican Party was the first party to be the abolitionist party. There's like the Whig parties, like there's the old parties. The third party was the anti-Masonic party in 1828. And then the Republican Party comes around like 1858-ish. And they're an abolitionist party. They are against slavery. Their first presidential candidate is a guy named, what's his name? Abraham Lincoln. Maybe you've heard of him. He got shot for something back in the day by the people who wanted slavery, by the way. So this worshiping of those who oppress you is kind of weak. And so ABC, you could do better, but maybe that's your job, not to do better on purpose like that. What did you think of that clip, Scott?
I mean, hilarious, perfect response, you know, putting her in check. I mean, that stood out to me so much too. It's like you give someone a word and they're like, define it. It's like, well, the word itself, like it's, and then she's trying to be all high and mighty. I just gave you the definition. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so pathetic. She's
like, I just made the mouth sounds. Doesn't that tell you what the mouth sounds mean?
Yeah, exactly. He owned her pretty well. That was very impressive. Great way to start. And it's like, hey, you're 35 minutes late.
Now, if we don't want her ignorance to fester within our mindsets, we should probably look at LBJ just for a second, because this is the guy, if you ask Key Bono, which again, what does Key Bono mean? It means Key Bono. It means Key Bono because words don't have definitions according to the nitwit. Anyway, Key Bono, Who benefits? Who benefited when JFK got his brain matter splattered all over that limousine? Was it the Secret Service that benefited? Was it the vice president who just got sworn in a couple hours later? Did he benefit maybe? Let's take a look at him. He might be a character you want to be familiar with in history. He worked with Clint Murchison, who might have helped to organize the assassination. He was part of the Democratic Party, which is the pro-slavery party, as I mentioned, right? When's the first black congressman come around? ABC. Well, how about the first black senator? Because the Republicans had black senators and congressmen right back in the 1800s, right after the Civil War. As soon as they were allowed to do such things in our country, they were going on. Democrats waited till, what did you say, 1960s to give you guys rights? That's interesting too. That's interesting. And when Trump got asked about the immigrants taking black jobs, how do you define black jobs? He said jobs that black people have. I mean, they were just looking for like him to say stuff he doesn't talk about. That's not how he thinks, right? Trump was one of the most popular celebrities of his era, and he helped black people historically until the mainstream media told everyone he's a racist, right? So that was my point earlier. It doesn't actually have to happen. They can just tell people it happened, and people take it like it did, and they assume their way right into the slavery that the deep state and the globalists and the New World Order are making for everybody. They have a whole assembly line: ABC, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, all those channels with letters, putting people in that mental assembly line of subjugation. So twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.